Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
ECSI fans, do you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report with Andrew McInnis from Wager Talk McInnis Picks for November 7th, 2023. Busy day in the ECSI studios. Action from the morning to the afternoon, now to it's almost dark here on Cape Cod, and it's only 4:11. Shout out to the gentleman behind the glass, Mr. Joe Shea, Mr. Cade Horton, Olu Bennett, and of course Evan Lewis. Shout out to our new partnership and sponsor, WagerWire. Travis this morning with the breakfast bankroll early from LA as we were going over some charts, some futures, turning some wagers into assets, but before they mature. If you have not downloaded the app, please go to Google Play or wherever you download your apps. Download WagerWire, one word. It's free. Get acclimated. Start tracking your wagers, tracking your ROI. Take a look at all the great sports books that they have partnered up with for some free plays, free wagers, and promos there. And it is the season if you're looking to make some quick cash, maybe to decorate the tree, fill some stocking stuffers, send an email to affiliates at wagerwire.com. Tell them ECSI and JD sent you. Travis, Zach, and their team will take good care of you. So without further ado, let's bring in the star of this show, the one and only Mr. Andrew McInnis.
Good evening.
Good evening. It feels like we already had a show. We were busy gabbing in the backstage for about 45 minutes, almost an hour. Welcome back. Busy time of year. Full slate of NHL. Some CFL playoffs. How you been, Andrew?
I'm feeling good. You know, I think, Jeff, like you said that it's almost dark where you are. Obviously, I'm an hour later or hour ahead in the time zone perspective. It's pitch dark out my office window right now. And the good news about it is that there's plenty of sports to watch and plenty of things to do to keep us busy and keep our mind off the fact that it's dark out so early, and that time can be a little bit depressing for many people. But we got the college hoops getting going. We're scanning the spreadsheets as you've showed me the ways and looking at all these boards lighting up like Christmas trees, and NHL's in full swing. The San Jose Sharks looking for their first win. The Oilers placing a goaltender that makes $5 million a year on waivers. Like, there's so much going on right now, and it's fun to follow. But I'll tell you, well, the fact is that you and I, it feels like we started talking about CFL a couple weeks ago, and here we are, November 7th. I can't believe it, Jeff. How are things with you?
Things are good. I wish I could say the same about Monday night. We tried to get cute on our one unit play. I wanted to get into the Dallas Stars. I really thought that Saturday that the numbers smelt to high heaven with the Bruins and the Red Wings. The Red Wings win 5-4, the first official loss for the Bruins. And Vegas was giving us a telltale sign. Well, we're going to lose 2 in a row last night. They had the Stars as high as -140. I'm not going to lay the 140. I'm not going to play regulation. I'm not going to do a minus goal and a half. So I got cute, big price on the Stars to get to 4 or better at plus 145. Bruins box to wire, late hope 3-2 with the 30 seconds left. Of course, we couldn't get it to 3-3 and bring it to overtime. And then in college basketball, over 100 games, 5 different sources. We crunched numbers for 18 hours around the clock trying to figure this out. And let's just say it didn't work out. Beer and pizza money, quarter, half units, an OFA. I left 7 games on the desk. We released 4. The funny one on the night was Toledo versus Detroit Mercy. We had over 155. Our true number was 164. We had a nice 9-point cushion. Scored 88 points in the first half. We're like, okay, this is coming true. Lands on 154. I can't make that up opening day. So that was a kick in the you-know-what. Had another game. We didn't score for the last 4 minutes. And another game that scored 10 points in the last 2 minutes. So it was one of those days where we wake up this morning, we see a big hockey slate, we see a couple MAC action football, but we're here today to talk about CFL to start. And before we get there, you talked about the release of the Oilers goaltender. We knew that was an issue. We knew that was an issue in the offseason, Andrew. And the Bruins have not one but 2 goaltenders with Swayman and Ullmark. And for the right price, I think they could have stole one of them, whether it was Ullmark. And I think this problem would have been solved, Andrew.
Absolutely. And now the question is, because number one, I mean, cap hit is always the main thing to discuss, right? 5 or 5.25 is a really, really tough number to be sending someone down to the minors. Like, could you imagine doing that to a player? That just would not really happen at 5.5. I mean, you do that to young players. You do that to players making $1 million, $2 million. You don't really send down to the minors a $5.5 million player. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. All I see on these Montreal accounts are, we're carrying 3 goaltenders right now. When are we going to move one? But the fact is that they need to get rid of Campbell, but they need to the Oilers would have to trade away somebody else that's worth a decent amount of coin in order to clear that cap space, right? Because that is an issue. No matter what the issue, no matter who's in the net right now, and obviously they're clearing him to go down to down to the minors, he's still holding 5.5. So nobody's gonna want him. That's the thing, is that if they try and trade him, they can't. So it's a really tricky situation because, like you said, and you talked about it, that's something that has to be addressed in the offseason. Now, I heard someone say something today that really stuck out to me. Stuart Skinner's the future in goal, right? For the Oilers. At least they think he is. He's young. People don't realize how young he is compared to Jack Campbell. Young goaltenders, and it's a good example with Swayman, right? A good example of some other guys that are so used to their whole careers being starting goalies, right? You get to the NHL and you have to be a backup for a while. Well, Stuart Skinner now is not going to be the backup for a while because his main starter stunk. And now Stuart Skinner gives up 6 yesterday. If you're Ken Holland and the GM and the management of the Oilers, you're wondering, what do we do? Well, the real question is, at this point, who would you rather have out there getting shelled? Your $5.5 million guy you paid, or your young goaltender? And it seems today that they've made their choice. They'd rather it be their young guy than the guy they're paid so much money to. So that's the choice they've made. But at this point, Jeff, I don't see them being able to trade away anybody. I don't see them being able to pick up any goaltenders because even if they do, they still have that cap space problem.
So you're almost trying to say that let's just say Ullmark was making 5.25. It was an even wash. They would have to give up a young potential, 18, 19-year-old that's not making any money, and you would have to take the goaltender as well to cover. So in other words, you're going to give up Andrew McInnis and the goaltender, and combined they make $6 million. We're going to give you Swayman, who makes dirt, Oh no, Allmark that makes the same, but we got to then throw in something to even off the monies.
Exactly. That's the biggest problem right now, because if they did swap goaltenders, like for example, I always talk about the Habs because that's the team I follow the closest. Everybody in Habs Nation right now wants Kent Hughes to get on the phone and trade Jake Allen to the Oilers. But he's not making, $500,000. He's making a good chunk of coin as well. So let's say for some crazy reason they were able to send, like a partially retained Jack Campbell back. They would have to send a player that makes around 2.25 million back from the Oilers. So they're losing a player. If they do any type of trade, they're going to lose a player, because there's not a chance that anybody's going to do a 1-for-1 swap with anybody else that's worth 5.5. So that is, and I'll be honest, that's a part of hockey I've never really was very good at, and understanding the math behind it and the finances. But when you look at things that way, it really changes your perspective, because it's one thing to be stuck with a bad goaltender. It's a whole new ballgame to be stuck with a bad goaltender with a bad contract.
Well, before we get to hockey, we have some CFL playoffs, the Final Four. I was listening late night to, I'll give him a plug, Gabe Morency, and on Sports Rage on Sports Grid late last night after I got home from Sports Map Radio with Anthony Pepe. We got the Final Four. One big spread, one not so big spread. My love affair lately or earlier this year for the BC Lions, but it looks like that's the public trendy dog. And then in the other game, the Mighty versus the Upstart, I guess is the best way to say it. A lot of points. I'd seen 9.5. So interested to see your take on the two games in the CFL playoffs this week.
So for me, my number was around 7.5, 8 for the Argos at home. And as far as the Lions and Bombers game, probably right around where I thought it would be. I thought I'd see maybe 3.5, 4 there. I thought I'd see 4.5, 5 for Winnipeg potentially. And, when I look at this Montreal team, here's the deal. I've been really up and down on them all season long. And let's take away against the spread, right? Just talking about winning games for a minute. They won every game that wasn't against Toronto, BC, and Winnipeg. That's kind of eye-opening to look at, Jeff. I mean, Saskatchewan, Edmonton, Hamilton, they swept the series and they just beat them last week in the playoffs. This is a team that was not able to step up in class against the top dogs. And when you have a 9-man league, well, it's very easy to tell after week 7 or 8. I mean, because you and I were talking ATS every week, right? Not as much about straight up. And this team just could not win against the top elite of the elite teams in the CFL. There were 3 teams that dominated, the best team in the East and the top 2 in the West. But now we're getting 10.5 points with them. And I'll be honest, that's the dog that I like out of these two semifinal matchups are the Alouettes, because their defense has improved over the past few weeks, but they put up 27 points last week against Hamilton, despite throwing an interception. Fajardo looks serviceable, but the run game to me is the biggest factor here. I cashed an under ticket. I was lucky to do so. A couple key stops from the Alouettes defense last week. And obviously Hamilton's offense is on nowhere near the same page as Toronto's offense is. But I think 10.5 points, we see it every year in the CFL, right? I think the popular dog, as you mentioned, is going to be BC. And then Toronto's going to be everyone's favorite team all season long. Everyone expects to win by double digits, and they win by a field goal. Right. And look, they move on, they go to the Grey Cup, but they don't win by 11 or 12, 13 points. I'm impressed by the run game with Stanback. Fajardo ran for 45 yards. I mean, when your quarterback is doing that and rushing the ball 5 or 6 times even, that to me is an important thing to add. And I think this Toronto team, they got off to slow starts sometimes in the season. They would be more of it was kind of like the opposite of BC. Like BC would get off to good starts in the West and then they'd kind of trail off in the second half, which is why I ended up playing the first half for them. I think Toronto can get caught sleeping out of their bye. I think Montreal can have a good first half. And if they give me even 10 points in the first half, let's say, I'm feeling really good about getting 10.5 on the point spread.
And that's what I was hearing last night as well, is the fact that Toronto had everything wrapped up so early. It's almost hard to flip that switch and turn it on. Now we're in the Final Four. Therefore, guys, we're one win away from the finals here. And the fact that the 10.5 points is just too much to give up.
And again, we're not asking Montreal to win the game. We're not even asking them to lose by a touchdown. We're asking them to lose by just anything less than 10 points or 11 points. I think that's very serviceable. Totals here are 50.5 in the early game. We got 49.5 in the later game. I think if you look at, again, I believe there will be a split. I think the early game could potentially go under and the late game has the potential to go over. When you hear people handicapping games and you hear this game's going to be run dominant, sometimes that translates and correlates to unders, right? Tick, tick, tick. The clock's going to keep going. Run the ball. I think it's the opposite here in this one for BC. BC has a horrible run defense. The good news for them last week, once Calgary went down, 10 points, Jeff, they weren't able to run the ball, right? You have to come back through the air. Winnipeg has the ability to dominate the game with Brady Oliveira on the ground and their deep running back room. It's why they were able to let Andrew Harris walk in free agency. It's a high number at 49.5. I lean towards the over. I don't think BC goes down without a punch. I think that game has a really, really exciting first half to it. But I think that we could see some surprising defense. Montreal's defense has improved. They've done all right, turning potentially 7 for their opponents into 3 points, forcing those field goals. Obviously you talked about Chad Kelly all year, how impressive he looked. Most outstanding player of the year and what he's able to bring. But one thing about this Toronto team, they take a long time to march the field sometimes. And I got a chance to watch them, as you know, in person. And even some of their drives, it's not like Chad Kelly's throwing the ball 40 yards every 3 plays, right? Check down, 15 yards. AJ Ouellette takes it. They want like 4 or 5 first downs before they even come close to the red zone. They don't really complicate their game, which is impressive to me. So I think that one's the higher total. I think that should be flipped. I like under 50.5 in the early game.
No, I agree. My true number was a 10 with a 50.5. I'm seeing some 50.5s. I do see, let me see, Circa is waiting and South Point, they're waiting to put their numbers up. But across the Superbook, Buckeye, FanDuel of Pennsylvania, Bet Online, 50.5 with a 10.5 in the early game. So I am in agreement with you, spot on that game.
I'm hopeful that we see a defensive effort, but the only thing is that, if Montreal throws a pick, if we see some sloppy quarterback play, they're going to have to get reckless early on, and then they'll have to start throwing the ball deep. I'd love to see both teams almost play chess, not checkers early on, and just try and out-scheme the other team, and the coaches kind of, try and simplify the offense, not make it too complicated. So, I'm hopeful that Toronto comes out cautious and doesn't come out guns blazing by any means. But for anybody that listened to our show over the past month, that you heard me say Montreal's going to win their match against Hamilton, get a piece of them to win the Grey Cup. And, now you're holding a 14-1 ticket here with them in the semis. That was kind of the beer and pizza, though. That wasn't because, hedging only goes a long way because you can only hedge so much. It's a 10.5 point spread here, right? So it's not like you can really do some crazy hedging. But as it stands right now, I think we're going to see Toronto and Winnipeg. I do think both teams that are favored can win. And BC's a team I've been rooting for all year long. You know I've been liking them. But can the defense that we saw from BC in the first 4 weeks show up this weekend is really the biggest factor here.
And as you were saying that a few seconds ago, I'm going back. I was thinking in my head, if we went back, I think it was around 6 weeks ago, I says, you can bookmark this. It's going to be a Toronto-Winnipeg final. And I think you're right. I think I think it's going to be a good first half in the BC Winnipeg. I can see it down to 4.5. I think it'll probably be 4 by kickoff. I think BC's that public trendy dog. I think you could take BC if you wanted to, as you said, in the first half. I think Winnipeg leans on them in the second half, and I think we'll be staring at a Winnipeg-Toronto final.
And it's going to be a cold one. It's going to be a snowy one probably in a few weeks in the Grey Cup, and the best run game wins. I think that's going to be an awesome Grey Cup, and we'll see how I do over the next few weeks. We'll try and make our way to the Grey Cup. But I'm looking forward to it, Jeff, and I hope you watch some of the games this weekend. I really hope you do.
Absolutely, 1,000%. I guarantee I'll have that on. I'll ask you before we transition over to the Frozen Pond, what is the Andrew McInnis opening line for the Grey Cup if it is Toronto or Winnipeg?
I think it's tight. I'm thinking. I think like 1.5 Toronto. You think Winnipeg's? I was thinking like 1.5 to Toronto.
I was wondering which way you'd go because it is a toss-up. I was thinking it would be under 3, and I probably had in my head Toronto 2.5. But I'd be running right to the window, buying a hook or a full point, taking Winnipeg plus 3.5, and I'd be taking Winnipeg to hold the Grey Cup up.
There will be some. That's the thing. If I'm right with the 1.5, 2, money will come in on, and then we'll be able to take. People like Toronto more this year than they like Winnipeg, and that's. If you're Toronto, or you're a Toronto fan, you should be worried about that because, as you know from last year, whichever team everybody loves going into the Grey Cup has lost every year, it seems like. Grey Cup is a really good time for dogs, especially in the first half. I've noticed they've come out really strong. So, Jeff, I think that I know some of the books you're able to get now in mass. You and I are going to be able to make some money on player props in that Grey Cup. We'll get to that in a few weeks, though.
Can't wait. Hockey tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games on the slate. I wanted to just say this. My good buddy and friend, Scott, landed in Vegas on yesterday afternoon. He'll be there through the weekend. I think he's got the red eye Saturday night, be back home Sunday morning. But we'll be attending, I think, potentially history on Friday night. He's going to the Fortress where the Vegas Knights are hosting the San Jose Sharks. And I know there's been some minus 500 money lines on Friday nights. I think last year it was the Avs at one point, maybe even Vegas. This San Jose Shark, I don't have words to explain what's going on there. I knew they'd be bad. You knew they'd be bad. I don't think historically we thought they'd be this bad. But if things go the right way the next 3 or 4 days, you could see Vegas maybe minus 550 or 600 with a puck line minus 2.5 going into Friday night.
A record will be broken. That's for sure. There's going to be multiple records broken with this San Jose Sharks team and also with the Vegas Golden Knights in more of a positive way with how they've started off their season. But Jeff, I had people laughing at me when I told them one of my favorite preseason futures was minus 200 Sharks to have the worst record. And they said, minus 200, who bets those, right? Well, off to a pretty good start. And the thing is, the GM and coaching staff apparently went into the locker room and lectured the players. You can't lecture the players when you set them up to fail. in my opinion, none of this is on the players. I'm not even, and I swear to God, I'm not even convinced this Sharks team would be favorites to win the AHL Calder Cup. I'm not convinced they'd be top 2 or 3. I'm serious. And you hear these people say, well, Alabama could beat the Cleveland Browns a few years ago, right? Oh, Georgia could beat the Houston Texans. To me, those takes were always ridiculous. But this is still professionals, right? We're talking about professionals. When you've got 1 or 2 players that are on the top line or top 6 for the Sharks that might not even be playing on the team for a couple other rosters in the NHL, that's worrisome. But here's my look, because I'm already frustrated at myself and I don't want to go on too long about it, but here's my outlook on it at this point. We'll get into tonight so we can get some actionable info, but they're playing the Flyers. It's the last game of the night, 10:38 Eastern. At this point, and call me crazy, I don't care. You feel free to call me crazy because I could say this and they'll end up losing the game 4-0, right? At this point, I'm more comfortable releasing overs just full game, thinking San Jose's got to do something. And even if they don't, they're still giving up a ton of goals. I was on the Pittsburgh one. I sent it to you. I don't usually send picks out late. I sent it out, I think, to clients like an hour before the game on Saturday night. Because I was like, you know what, Andrew, why are you not betting more totals in these San Jose games? And I sent that Pittsburgh one over. Back-to-back 10 pieces against them is crazy. And you know what? I have to acknowledge something. I lost a bet, and you'll remember this one because I told you it was a high price for a team total. Colorado over 3.5 goals. I lost on San Jose. Since then, every team has scored at least 4 goals on them, and I've only bet 1 or 2 overs against them. Because what happened? I got discouraged because I lost one. It's really, really, really rough to see. But the -1.5, as I keep seeing multiple people talk about, is still plus money. That's the question. It's still plus money, but this time it's the Flyers. It's not the Vegas Golden Knights. It's not the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's the Flyers. The Flyers aren't as good. What would you do tonight in this game? Are you hopping on the puck line, team total? Because I'm telling you right now, I will have my own money on the over 6.5 in this game.
Well, again, they're bait trapping you. The Philadelphia team total in one spot is 3.5 over -140. In another spot, the more reliable one at Heritage, it's only 3.5 over -125. You got a Flyers team overnight that was -190. Right now, it's circa they're -185. Okay, so we're not going to lay the -185. We are now going to say, are we going to do the -1.5? Are we going to do the Flyers in regulation? Or are we doing 6.5 even money? And some spots, it's juiced under -0.8. The San Jose team total is 2.5 over -120. If you like the Flyers, I guess the simple fact is you only have to lay 25 cents for them to get to 4 or better. Call me crazy here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather play San Jose team total over 2.5 -20 cents before I did that on the Flyers tonight.
I agree. I was thinking about that myself, but then I said to myself, why would I take the San Jose team total over and not just take the full game over? If they win the game, they're not winning 3-2, right? You agree with me? I mean, and I mean, it could happen. Obviously, every game is its own individual game. But as you hear people say, I mean, look, the trend is the NHL. The trend is your friend, and something that I have to get better at. And you're going to notice because, you know how there's the Patrick Corbins of the world in the MLB, where people get laughed at for fading them. But if you find a few pitchers or some Philadelphia team total, Philadelphia Phillies, or different patterns in the MLB, you can bet them. In the NHL, I'm not good at betting patterns. I find that I've noticed that I feel like I know hockey so well, Jeff, but I try and sometimes reinvent the wheel versus people that are getting into hockey betting or don't bet it as much as I do. They're like, oh yeah, this Bruins team's on the road to breaking records. I'm going to keep betting them. And last year I bet them barely anything. Vancouver last night, I took Edmonton team total over. Well, they've been allowing at least 5 goals a game. Why didn't I take Vancouver's team total over? And now here's the thing with this San Jose team. I think that this is an opportunity. Look, if there's ever a such thing as a sandwich game, quote unquote, isn't this the one that's it? I mean, they've got this one, and then they've got Vegas. They've got some tough matchups coming up. Still, their schedule is not getting any easier. I just don't think their defense is very good. Like, they might score 2 or 3 goals tonight and still lose 5-3. That's how bad they are. But the plus 110, what do you think about that? I mean, how long are we into the fact that we might start seeing minus 120s on these puck lines? Because if it's plus 110 for Philadelphia on the puck line, what's the number we're going to see on Vegas? Like minus 160, minus 200 on what's your prediction for the puck line price for Vegas?
Each game, as you said, is an individual. If San Jose lost tonight 8-1, they're setting us up for that Friday night 3-2 grab ass game where it doesn't go over. They don't cover the puck line. They don't cover the first period, the whole enchilada, which we could see. So I'll go on record to say if they're going to say minus 160, minus 170 on the puck line for Vegas, or I've never seen this, or I can't remember this. They might, if the Flyers put up a 10 spot or a 9 spot, they might, for the first time in my history, do a puck line minus 2.5. Say, hey, listen, we'll give you San Jose plus the 2 goals. We think Vegas is going to win by 3 or more. It was like back in the day when Pedro Martinez pitched at home for the Red Sox. There was no 1.5 run line. It was minus 2.5. If you wanted to play Pedro in Boston at Fenway, they had to win by a field goal. I think we could see Vegas having to win by a field goal at the Fortress Friday night.
I've seen DraftKings post a few of those, but then the mainstream, like other books, would just continue to have the 1.5. You know how there's always those alternative options? Some books might, like you said, just get rid of that 1.5 and say, we don't even want to offer that for this game. We're going to make the number 2.5 here. It's super interesting. And, I find it really weird because the GM, like I said, went into the locker room, the coaching staff, and it's almost like they were lecturing their children as if they didn't set them up to succeed. You can't get mad at your kid for not doing well in school if you didn't buy them the books to study. You know what I mean? Like they don't have the right school supplies. They don't have the right. I mean, this is just not a good team. It's not a team that can compete with most NHL teams. And this is going to be a big game for them. They've given up 20 goals their last 2 games. They're playing the Philadelphia Flyers. It would take a lot. I mean, look, Mackenzie Blackwood, I think, is starting tonight, or let me see who's starting. I think it's Mackenzie Blackwood. But I mean, we talk about expected goal numbers. A lot has to go right for these guys to be able to just defend and all of a sudden go from giving up 20 goals in 2 games to, just 1 or 2 goals. So I'm seeing Blackwood's going to start. He's 0-6-1 with a 4.78, 0.879 save percentage. And you got Samuel Urson, 3.9, 0.815 save percentage. Why is this not a 7, Jeff? For the total? Is it because both teams are shaky offensively? Because realistically, you're betting against the bad offenses or bad defenses. This to me should be a 7. Why is this not a 7 and why is it a 6.5 is kind of my question.
Because they want us to bet the over.
Definitely. But they gave us a 7 last night in Vancouver and that had no problem going over.
And then 6.5 in the Tampa, Toronto, and that goes flying over too. So, all right. We got a full slate. Instead of me going through all the games, I'll let you pick and choose. Otherwise, I'm gonna get yelled and screamed at because I don't want you to miss dinner or whatever here. But your Tampa heads to Montreal, so that's obviously a big game for you. Buffalo at Carolina. Minnesota at the Islanders with the Islanders favored there, what's kind of an eye opener. Jets favorite at the Blues, Preds at the Flames. We know our thoughts on the Flames there. Devils at Colorado, overnight number of 165 up to 176. That's a huge number there. And Pittsburgh at the Ducks, up to 190 at Circa on the mighty Penguins. But the stage is yours, my brother.
Well, one team that I rip on quite a bit. There's a lot of different things I could mention for this slate. The New York Islanders, Jeff. I talk about trends, right? I want to be more aware of some of these, right? So the Islanders are a team that you want to bet on as a favorite and run as far away possible as you can when they're a dog. Now, this matchup, I think, is interesting because, number one, the Wild have won 4 straight in this one. You've got a Minnesota team that really has been a largely over team, a worse defensive team this year. And that matchup, when you look at the 4 in a row that they've won and against the Islanders, have been all low-scoring contests. And I think that if you switch how sloppy defensively Minnesota's been this year and look at how the Islanders have played hockey recently, I think if they can shut down Minnesota for the first period, that the Islanders are the play. They're a team that I think in games like this, when they play a team that's not against an upper-class team, let's say like Colorado or even throw in Tampa Bay or Boston, when they play a team like Minnesota that plays very sloppy, I think that there's the defensemen and the back checking from the forwards and the goaltending with Sorokin. They have the ability to win. And as far as New York, this is one that stuck out to me. This is a kind of a wonky number. Don't take, the number I'm using here for the example, but in the last 76 games, so at least it's a large sample size, right? Islanders are 52-24 against a team with a win percentage below 400. They show up against teams that are worse than them. They win games against teams that are worse than them on the stat sheet, and I'm betting them tonight. I think they're a good spot here. This is a place that they do much better when they're playing at home. And you look at some of their last scores here. I want to read them out because they've either been in tight games or they've won them. Hurricanes, they lose against them 4-3. All right. That's a 1-goal game. They beat the Capitals 3-0. They lose to the Red Wings, but it's just 4-3, another 1-goal game. They beat the Blue Jackets 2-0. They beat the Senators by 1 goal. This is a team that thrives in 1-goal games. They're not getting blown out by anybody. They're not blowing anybody else out. They're a team I like tonight, Jeff, and this is a spot that actually would be my first game of the whole season betting on them. One other team that I like tonight. Here we go. Winnipeg team total. Here's one up your alley. I like Winnipeg team total over 3.5 plus 110. The Blues, looking at some of their expected goals against, they're a team that I think the numbers are going to finally start to catch up to them as far as their defensive performances. They have overall been kind of an under team this season, but I want to backtrack and look at some of the teams they've played. They played a Stars team that's a relatively under team. They played a Kraken team, a struggling Penguins team, the Coyotes. The list goes on. But the last time they played the Jets put up 4 goals on them, and I think the Blues are going to get worse and worse. And a wise man once said, you want to bet the over when it's a minus, and a minus or the under when it's a plus. And that's you. That's who the wise man was. I think Jets team total over 3.5 at plus 110 is a good price. And there was one late night game I wanted to mention tonight. Oh yeah. Colorado and the Devils. I think that the way that they played the Devils without Heischer and Jack Hughes in the first game was good, but it was against the Blackhawks, right? Then you kind of got some tougher teams on deck. Now you're playing against Avalanche team. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games, and you don't want to be known as a team that only beats bad teams. The Avalanche went on a winning streak of like 5 or 6 straight games, Jeff, but in those games that they won, they were not against great teams. They weren't even against anything close to elite teams. The Avalanche will show no mercy tonight to a Devils team that's that's shorthanded, without 2 of their best players, their captain, their highest scoring player. And let's not forget, the Devils are one of the biggest over teams in the league. And a lot of that isn't just because of their scoring. They were giving up goals too. So I think over 3.5. And unfortunately for us here, Jeff, this is not a plus price on Colorado. We're getting minus 120 on this one. So 3 plays I like. We got the Islanders money line. We got the Winnipeg Jets team total. And we got the Avalanche over 3.5. 3 that stuck out to me.
And before we close out here, I just writing that one down for us. Avs versus New Jersey. You know, I have to point this out because, listen, I was born tonight, not last night, and I've gone against them a couple times, but I can smell rat a mile away. I had an overnight number of the Lightning minus 141, your Canadians plus 121 with a 6.5. At Circa right now, you can go run to the window, be embraced by Jeffrey Benson, and bet the Tampa Bay Lightning at only minus 127. Okay.
Wow.
So I'm going to tell you this tonight, your Montreal Canadiens, not only do they win outright tonight at plus 116 at the Circa, you can also tiptoe to the window. And this one's going to really shock you. So I don't want you to fall off your stool. You can go get their team total over 3.5 plus 120. So I am going on record here right now at 4:51 that says the Montreal Canadiens beat the Lightning tonight and they get to 4 goals. How's that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great to me. I'm happy I'm not watching the game at 11 p.m. local time. They're back home from their road trip and they're motivated. Remember, I always talk about a team, you fade teams after a successful road trip, not after an unsuccessful one. Montreal blew their last 2 games. They lost to Arizona. It looked awful against St. Louis. They'll be ready in this one. And I love when you bring stuff like that up, the different odds at different sports books. It is a very fishy number. One thing I will say, and I'm curious how much you read into this, as a Canadiens fan watching that game last night, not even as much as I cheer against the Maple Leafs, because I got to give them my respect. That was a good comeback. I was kind of hoping Tampa Bay would win that game so they wouldn't be so angered going into this one. You know what I mean? Motivation-wise, even though they're pro athletes, we all know there's a such thing as letdown spots. They're going to be a little bit unhappy after giving up. They had a 4-1 lead. It wasn't even 3-1. I think it was 4-1. And they blew it. So that is a little bit worrisome for me, but I feel good about the Canadiens. I feel good about it. And I lean to the over as much as they want to have a good defensive effort after their last 2 games. I lean to the over in this one. So, and if you're betting props out there, you might as well be looking at Sean Monahan, because that guy has more points than Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau combined out in Calgary. I mean, that was a great pickup. And, everyone talks about Caulfield shots on goal and things like that. The best part about it is you're getting minus 115 on this prop for Sean Monahan. The thing is, Jeff, it's hard to give out a prop like that and make it a kind of best bet material, because it's the Habs. They're going to score 5 goals one night and then play 3 games in a row. Like, I'm a fan, but from an actual, serious handicapping perspective, they're like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get with that team sometimes. But I think it is interesting that you got Sean Monahan minus 115. He's in the second line now. He's somebody that's worth looking at. And for people's perspective, Cole Caulfield is minus 166 at DraftKings. And you've got Nick Suzuki at minus 160. So you got a guy minus 115, or you got a guy's minus 160. Choose who you think has the most value there.
I'll take the minus 115 with Sean Monahan. How's that?
I like it. And I like your 3.5 team total too.
Well, we got plenty of action here as always. The scroll has been going the whole time, Andrew. Everyone knows where to follow you at McInnis Picks. Go over to Wager Talk and follow all your work there. Obviously, it's Sports Mayflower. Run over to YouTube to Mayflower Sports. Subscribe. It's free. I'd like to always close here with you telling them what you have to offer at Wager Talk for all your work.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. We could talk for hours. We could talk forever, and I love it. I'll be texting you now during the games tonight. after this hockey talk, especially the Canadians game. But obviously, please like this video. If you're watching it on YouTube or Twitter or wherever you're watching, show us some love here on this video. But just want to promote really quick Puck Time. That's my hockey show on Wager Talk. Obviously, if you feel free to watch that live or afterwards, we record at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And we'll try and pump those numbers up. You can get all kinds of picks there from us. And I always have different packages available at my website, wt.buzz/am. So we got CFL playoffs, we got UFC, all kinds of good stuff going on right now. So just like Jeff, I'm a huge fan of long-term success, not short-term. So join me, and we'll try and finish off the CFL on a good note and get on a good run here in hockey.
The one and only Andrew McInnis at McInnis Picks at Wager Talk. Run on over to Wager Talk. Like he said, it's all about the long term. Anyone can win one day, 1 week, even 1 month. I have clients that have been with us since 15 and 16. We're coming up on the start of our 9th year. I've been doing work with Andrew now for a couple years. He's the best in the business, young, energetic, dedicated, works around the clock, and he puts the time in, and that's, doesn't hide behind losses, doesn't get the duck boats and parades after one winning game or one winning week. It's someone you definitely want to jump on board with. That, hence why we work together for as long as we have. So on Thursday, 1 o'clock my time, 2 o'clock your time on your channel, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Mr. Andrew McInnis at McInnis Picks and at Wager Talk, we wish everyone a blessed evening. Cash some tickets, have some fun, and we will see you soon.